don't get as triggered as when I hear under compulsion, but I still get, can we stop saying that?
Yeah.
Can we stop talking about that? On the list of things that it could have a big effect on your church, it's probably not in the top 10.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Next Sunday podcast. Jim Sheppard here with my partner in crime, the amazing current CEO of Generis.
Current? Does that mean that there's a change coming, Jim?
CEO. No, it means the former CEO is sitting right across from you.
I want to know if there was a box on my desk or something I didn't know about. Current as of this moment.
No, you're the CEO. That's why when people come down and bring stuff to my office, I was like, that looks like a really good thing for the current CEO of Generis to handle. That's not me. I used to be. I used to be.
That's so funny.
Well, we're here for another episode of the Next Sunday podcast, and I think we've got another topic that'll be pretty good for everybody.
Yeah, I would say that last topic was hot. Like, I think
what was hot about
people had. First of all, you were passionate about it. You were hot. You were fired up about it. But man, it sparked some great conversation among the listeners, and just between your blog posts and the podcast, it seems like it's been a really fruitful conversation.
I'm pretty sure I won't have anyone. If I go into their church and like, hey, guys, whatever you say in the giving moment, don't say under compulsion. Whatever words, I don't care if you use them in the words. We're not going to say under compulsion. Don't even say those words.
Jim, I was at one of our client churches not too long ago, and I was there on a Sunday morning. They were celebrating a special day, and I was just there to be supportive.
Of course.
Just there. They didn't need me to be there. I was just there to be supportive. And I'm sitting there, and one of the leaders got up to do the giving moment. And I pulled out my phone to take a picture of him and just say, man, so proud of you, because he's come such a long way in this. But he thought I was videoing him so I could give him feedback. And so I didn't think about the fact that I'm holding up my phone on the front row. I'm stressing him out. He's trying to focus. And like, oh gosh, what did I say? Did I say something wrong? I was just trying to take a picture of him and get good timing.
Freaked him out, buddy.
Freaked him out.
Yeah, just because he thought you were going to.
I was like, I have some thoughts.
I have some thoughts about what you just said there, bud.
I have some thoughts. I got to be more mindful of this.
Yeah. We have to be careful because people take us a lot more seriously than we take ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I'm just cheering you on. I don't know what's going on. I'm just proud of you, man. I think you're crushing it.
But while we're talking,
but by the way, gosh, the under compulsion thing, I need you to cut that out. By the way, I'm scheduled a call with Jim.
That.
I'll bring in the hammer, Jim Sheppard, the hammer when it comes to under compulsion.
Well, I hope that episode was helpful, because it really was trying to make the point that there is an equipping in that. And it's a really rich text. Yeah. And let's treat it the way it is for the rich text that it is. But today we got another one that I kind of get a little bit fired up about.
Yeah.
Because it's about something else that I hear. And when I hear it, I don't get as triggered as when I hear under compulsion, but I still get, can we stop saying that?
Yeah.
Can we stop talking about that?
Yeah.
And it's this whole idea that when it looks like the economy is going to take a hiccup of some kind, what's going to happen to our giving?
Wow.
Can we stop, bro?
Wow.
Can we stop? I mean,
that's a natural correlation to think that, right?
If you didn't know any better, yeah.
Come on. Tell me how you feel there, Jim.
Not filtering it. I didn't filter it last time. Probably not going to filter it.
We don't need to do that.
We can be filtered with our clients, but here we can be unfiltered, because that's our whole thing is, we've always said we're here. If we ruffle a feather or two, it's not to ruffle your feathers. It's to get you to stop and think about what you're doing while you're doing it.
So good.
And if you still decide it's okay to do it the way you've been doing it, and it's contrary to what we just said, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But at least know why you're doing it the way you're doing it.
That's right.
And this is like, why would you make that statement? Look, I mean, I've been around for a minute, 3 decades, a little over 3 decades. I've seen.
Well, you've been around longer than 3 decades
in this work.
You've been doing this work. Let's just clarify. I don't want to confuse our people and be like, I thought I was listening to Jim Sheppard. I don't know, 3 decades. Who's this 30-year-old?
He's a millennial
telling me about
No,
this
I'm
stuff.
the father of millennials. That's what I am.
Okay, fair enough. You've been doing this work for 3 and a half decades. I've been doing this work, almost.
Yeah. You were at my 70th birthday, so it's kind of hard for me to get away with 3 and a half.
I wasn't going to let that one go by.
That math wasn't going to work.
That math's not going to matter.
I've been doing this work for over 3 decades. I've seen some economic cycles.
Yes.
I mean, I thought 2008, 2009, I was just like, what could we do that would throw more chaos into the church than that?
Yeah.
Hello, worldwide pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, this is not scientific, but I remember asking in 2021, I asked a number of my clients how many of them dipped into reserves during the pandemic, and almost no one did.
Yeah.
Now, reserves is like a rainy day fund, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's kind of what I think about it. Well, if you got a worldwide pandemic, that's not a rainy day.
Right.
That's a typhoon.
Yeah.
And if you didn't dip into your rainy day fund then, when are you?
Yeah.
And you know what happened in the pandemic? The same thing that happened in 2008 and 2009, the same thing that happened in the economic boom of 2014 to 19, and the same thing that happened in the pandemic. Some churches, their giving stayed flat. Some churches, their giving went down, not as many as you think.
Yeah.
And a lot of churches, their giving actually went up.
Wow.
If the economy is the problem, how could that be?
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're economically bulletproof.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the economy is not an issue.
Yep.
But on the list of things that it could have a big effect on your church, it's probably not in the top 10.
Wow. That's a big statement. Not in the top
Bold
10.
statement, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about, let's not even say, I mean, moral failure is going to cause havoc.
Sure.
You know that. So that's probably number one. That's number one.
Yeah.
Because it's unexpected generally, and it comes on very quickly without warning, breaches trust, and people are embarrassed. And if it's bad enough, they won't even be near that church.
Yeah.
They don't even want people to know they went to that church. And so, yeah, that's going to hit you hard. Has nothing to do with the economy. I mean, the economy could be booming.
Yep.
And if that happens in your church, you're taking a hit, bud.
Yeah.
You're taking a big hit.
Yeah.
Right away. But then you've got, what if a pastor just goes through burnout issues? What if you've got dysfunction in your team?
Yeah.
What if you've got leaky vision or no vision at all?
Church
what if you've got
division.
vision fatigue? What church division? You're
Split.
splitting over issues, whatever that might be. I mean, we've seen 3 or 4 major denominations split in the last 10 years. The Episcopals, the Presbyterians, the Lutherans, and now the Methodists are splitting all over and I've watched what happens in a lot of those churches where the economy is going well.
Yeah.
But it's what's going on inside the 4 walls of your church is a much bigger issue than what's happening on Wall Street.
Wow. Wow.
So we're talking about walls.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the walls in your church, not the Wall Street up there where the action happens.
That's
right?
so good. That's such a good perspective. What is it about? Why is there such a quick response or a quick pointing to the economy? Either afraid of what's about to happen, or if giving starts to go down, it's the immediate assumption. Why do people jump there so quickly?
Whew. I don't know the answer definitively, Frank. I can only give you a couple of maybe guesses on my behalf. I think part of it is in something that we've talked about again and again and again, and that's that old transactional mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you believe that giving is a transaction by your people, then that might be more disruptive. Right? The what's happening in their wallets might be more disruptive. The other thing is that pastors just don't understand how things work. They're not paying attention to how things work. And interestingly, when I bring it up to them and I talk about the economy and then what can happen inside the walls of their church, they look at me almost like, well, that's obvious, Jim. Who wouldn't know that? And I was like, well, now you understand why I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Because it's so obvious to me when I tell people about it, but it's not obvious to you.
Yeah. So
they're not seeing the correlation out there in the bigger marketplace or stopping to think about, hey, what happened to my church when we had a worldwide pandemic?
Yeah.
The XP says, Pastor, our giving actually went up by 18%. In a pandemic? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because they trust your church. They love your church. They know that times are tough. There's some people in your church. I mean, I know several churches in May of 2020, a couple of months, not even a couple of months into the pandemic, they had significant large givers in their church come to them unprompted and said to the pastor or to the executive pastor or to the CFO, hey, if things get rough, before we start making cuts around here, would you let me know?
Wow.
Now you and I know what that's code for.
Yeah.
I've got the ability maybe uniquely. There's probably a handful of people that can do it, but I've got the ability to make up that gap if I need to in this moment. Yeah. Why would somebody do that, Frank? Because they love their church, they love the Lord, they understand how things work, they want to be supported, they trust. I mean, I'll go down the list. Yeah. All of those things are things that live inside the walls of your church. While all hell is breaking loose out there in the world, they're saying, I want to make sure that our church stays on sound footing during this time. And pastors don't think about that. They're just like, oh, gosh, the economy. I mean, we're already kind of looking at that, into next year. We've got a couple of people on our team that are asking. And I was like, yeah, it's a good conversation. Yeah. Let's have that conversation internally and be prepared to speak to our clients and equip them with it, especially the ones who are going to just kind of, shriek and like, oh, gosh. I think the other piece of it, Frank, is in the world, that there are people who have a scarcity mindset and there are those who don't. And the ones who have a scarcity mindset are going to be the ones who get freaked out by something like this. And they just don't stop to think that there are bigger things that could affect their church than the economy. Now, by the way, that's not to say that the economy, I do remember very well, I was working with a church in Austin, Texas. Dell Computer is headquartered there. And this would have been 12, 15 years ago. So Dell was a much bigger presence there even than they are now. And they had a significant layoff. Yeah, that's going to affect your church. That is going to affect it. But that's an isolated economy. That's a local economy.
That's a different deal altogether.
Because you've got a lot of people that are employed there.
That's right. Macro economy and local circumstances are very different. And yet, what we're seeing on the news, we're talking macro, this thing could happen federally, this thing could happen, this thing could happen. Oftentimes people are assuming that that's going to have an implication at their church in their setting, but you've really got to evaluate. If you want to do the thoughtfulness of planning and looking ahead and going, hey, could there be an impact here? Let's not assume there's an impact because something is happening at the federal level or nationally. We're seeing some trends, but what's happening in your community with your major employers? If something like that, if you're in a farm town area and there's a heavy drought, yes, that's going to be a different conversation than what we see on the news. That oftentimes gets us emotionally charged up. I would say this. I think this language around it's the economy, that phrase. So we had a 2-word phrase last time under compulsion was a problem. Now we got a 3-word phrase. It's the economy. Like we immediately kind of jump to that or we're concerned about that. I think it's a convenient reason to point about giving or concern or hesitancy or lack of decision making because it's something that's perceived as uncontrollable. And so it's very convenient for us not to look around in our area because we can blame the economy because they can't blame us for the economy. But what we need to do is go, it may be the economy if there's an impact in giving in our church. And so let's be smart. Let's look ahead at what's happening in the economy and the world around us. Let's be wise. I'm not saying that, but let's not jump to conclusions and say that's the number one issue because more than likely, just as you said, it may not even be in the top 10. Certainly if there's concern about future things happening in the economy. It's not happening now, but it might happen. And now we're seeing some giving going down. Do you really think that people are living that far out? More often than not, I would say no.
I'd say no.
And so I would say there's something else going on. So what is it that we're evaluating because it's convenient to blame something that's outside our control?
Yeah. When I wrote the blog post, the title was, it's not the economy, Pastor, but it might be you. But it might be
What a great line.
Right?
It might be
because your leadership and the way you're leading your church and the way you're leading your team and the way you're talking about faith and money in the church, all of those things are bigger issues than what's happening in the macro economy, right? And, and it's frustrating that we would just revert to that so quickly when we don't talk about things like, for instance, I don't hear people talking about when we signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, and we boosted the standard deduction way up there to the extent that it changed the number of people who itemize, in other words, claim itemized deductions. Yeah. It went from like 34 to 36% to less than 10%. So many people in the middle tiers of your giving are more tax motivated than even the higher net worth people, and certainly the lower ones as well. But they're more tax motivated. So now they don't even have to make a gift to a church, and they get credit for this massive standard deduction that's bigger than that. And what happened, nobody talked about it at the time much. I had a scratch my head moment when I saw that, and I was like, I wonder what this is going to do to the giving in churches. And what it's done is it's kind of punched a hole in the middle of it, right? To the extent, I mean, you see enough mortar stone.
Sure.
You can see where that top tier, I talk about it all the time. It's not 20/80, it's 9 and 60.
Yeah.
And how many times when you and I have been looking at a church and I look at that 9% and it's 58 or 61, or it's 8% and 59%, and I just look at you and I was like, there it is.
Yep.
There it is. And nobody talked about tax policy has changed what giving looks like in the middle tiers of our churches.
Yeah.
That's a bigger issue than what's going on Wall Street.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a financial issue, but it's not uncontrollable. It's tax policy that came into effect and changed that. And now under the One Big Beautiful Act, it actually gets bigger. The standard deduction gets bigger. And, oh, by the way, you get this above the line deduction for $2,000 for a married couple filing jointly. And so, that's probably having more effect on your giving, which means totally, we're not trying to go down this road and spend a lot of time here. That makes it even more important that you teach giving as transformation.
Yeah.
Because if it's a transaction, then the tax motivation is important.
Yeah.
If it's about transformation, the tax motivation is not important.
That's so good.
It's about pleasing God. It's not about maximizing the deductions on your tax return, right? You understand? I mean, that's what we're saying there.
That's so good.
And nobody talks about those things, and we need to talk about those things in our churches. So it's not the economy, but it might be not just you, Pastor, but you and your team. That's what lives inside the four walls of your church is a much bigger risk than the things that live outside the walls of your church. That's the second time I've said that, because I want to make sure that we get that right. And
we see this between churches on the same street.
Oh,
right. So somebody could be like, "Oh, the economy," and their giving's going down. But then you look not on the other side of the world or a bunch of different circumstances, but down the street, somebody's not experiencing the same thing, but they're in the same economy in every way you want to phrase that. And so I would just encourage people, if that's your propensity to go, okay, we're seeing something happening in the news, we need to evaluate it. I think that's wise. I don't think there's anything wrong with us being mindful of what's going on in the world around us.
Yeah,
that's smart.
We should. Smart. I'm not saying avoid that.
Not just economy, anything that's going on in the news around us or where there's tensions or issues. Let's be aware of them for sure. But at the same time, I would say let's make an effort to evaluate and go, this could be it. This could be an issue. But if we're starting to see some trends, where else could we see that there's a gap? Is it because we're not teaching? Is it because there's some issues among staff or some other kind of tension? Or you got a handful of small groups that are disgruntled and they're having conversation over the side and really having some tensions. Maybe you haven't done your math right and you're sending people out to go plant a new church and you haven't simply evaluated with the giving that's going to go with that. And so they've already started tithing to that new church. And this is a good thing. We're planning a new church, but we didn't do our math right there and we kind of estimated low. And so instead of reevaluating our math, we started assuming that something we heard at the news is doing this. I'll give you a practical example that's non-money. Okay. We had a church, it's at Elevation, one of our campuses. Okay. So this is not a private story or anything that's not appropriate to share. We had a campus that started once a month doing a Saturday night movie night. Ooh. Okay. And so what they do is they outreach to the community. Services were on Sunday, just like normal. But Saturday night, you could come. They'd use the LED wall or the big screen or whatever. And they do family. They do popcorn and sodas and all this stuff. And man, it was fun. And they were having decent attendance. Now, their location parked up against like this master plan community. So it's really natural for people to kind of flow down and do this. Well, over the next few months, their attendance started to go up. And up and up. And so the other campus pastors are like, it's the movie nights. That's what did it. We've got to do movie nights. So now you had people at portable locations and whatnot, several trying this movie night idea out Saturday night. First of all, location not the same, probably not the same attendance, but they were trying the exact same play, and it didn't move the needle. And so it's like, well, maybe we didn't evaluate this properly.
Maybe.
We've seen an event occur, and it's the only variable that's changed internally that we've seen massive growth at this campus. And so we just started to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Hey, first of all, we might have jumped to some conclusions here. Is there something else that we could do here or evaluate? So we got under the hood, started looking in the corners, kind of figuring out what's going on. And we figured it out. Real quick, Jim. Jim, it wasn't the movies. They were good. I'm glad they had fun.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was good for the community. It wasn't the movies. You know what it was? Church down the street closed. Large church down the street that wasn't in our sphere. Okay. Good church.
Yeah.
Had an issue, and the church kind of unraveled. Okay. Those people needed somewhere to go to church. They just didn't show up all on the same Sunday. They just started to kind of feed their way over, and we had no idea. We didn't draw the correlation. Yeah. It just happened to be around the same time that this internal tension was arising at this other church when we launched movies.
Totally.
And so what did we think it was? Movies. The same is true when it comes to finances in the church. Yeah. Sometimes if we start to see a little wavering in giving, it's easy to go, hey, it must be the economy. I saw something on the news, when we need to look around and evaluate a little bit more and not jump to that conclusion, because we might be pointing to something that we're going to be pointing at the rest of our life because we don't know any other way to explain, because we're looking at the wrong reason.
Yeah, and here's what comes to mind as well, Frank. When you talk about the news, the mainstream press is a participant in reinforcing this idea that it might be the economy, and so, giving among charities is starting to get soft. Well, can we just talk about that for a second? When they talk about that, they've got all the nonprofits in one big category.
Yeah.
So the animal rescue operation, I love rescue. I've got 3 little rescues at my house. I love animal rescue. The animal rescue operation and your church are in the same category.
Yeah. Yep.
The animal rescue operation and Wheaton College and your church are in the same category. The animal rescue operation and World Vision and your church and Wheaton College are in the same category.
All lumped together.
Yeah. And so it doesn't make any sense, because here's what I would say to you. As a minimum, and I have in my 3.5, almost 3.5 decades in doing this work, I've seen a lot of research and church giving data almost always. In fact, I can't think of a time when it didn't look different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because when everybody else is paying a price, the church tends not to.
Wow.
Why is that, Frank? Why is that? You know why that is.
Yeah.
Because 52 times a year, I've got my people right in front of me.
Yeah. We're not banking on that one event in November.
Or a direct mail operation or whatever it is that I've got going on. And you and I both know you don't have the same people in front of you every week. That's not the point. The point is that you've got what I like to call a home field advantage. Yeah. You have an advantage that no other nonprofit, none of them have. Your constituency in front of you, and for many churches, multiple times on a Sunday.
Wow. Yeah.
And you've got them in front of you, and you can build trust and cast vision, and you can talk about giving as transformation, all the other things that can insulate you from the effects of the economy, which is not as big of an issue as you thought it was anyway.
Jim, let me ask you a question about it's the economy.
Did I feel like I got a little bit fired up about that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to throttle you back a little bit here, Jim.
I see where you're going. Got the fire extinguisher out.
When it comes to this statement, it's the economy. Okay, this is a curveball. It's in our list. Okay. Church is different than the other nonprofits. You just said it. So let's flip the conversation for just a second. Not the churches. We talk a lot to churches, but we also serve schools. We serve other Christian nonprofits, have a privilege to get to do that. Yeah. How does the economy and what's happening federally play out in their world differently than church? Do they have more reason to be concerned about what's happening in the world around them? Or is it based on the location of their constituency and who's giving? What things do they need to be monitoring when it comes to the economy at the highest level?
Yeah, I think if your education, whether it be a K through 12 private Christian school or a college or a seminary, you actually have an advantage over all the other nonprofits because you have a developed relationship with the people that are likely to give to you. They came through your institution and had an amazing experience.
Yeah.
You know, I'll forever be grateful to the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what gave me my start in business and enabled me to do a lot of what I did in the early years before I was at Genairs. I'll always be grateful. That was a transformational, not spiritually transformational, but a transformational experience for me because it prepared me to do something. And so I have a different relationship with the University of Georgia than I do all the other nonprofits that Nancy and I support.
Yeah.
And so even an educational institute, and that's why when we coach them, we're trying to get them to embrace whether it's a school institution of any kind or a nonprofit, is you have to build a culture of philanthropy. We talk about culture of generosity in the church, culture of philanthropy.
Yeah.
You know, you want to indoctrinate your people that giving is normal around here. In a K through 12 private Christian school, one of the biggest fallacies out there among parents is that your tuition, even if it looks like it's a lot of money, $18,000, $20,000 a year, doesn't cover the full cost of education.
Yeah.
It's rare that it does.
Yeah.
It's generally anywhere from 83 to 88%. And they have to cover the difference with fundraising during the year, which means they have to have a culture of philanthropy to insulate them from when, you know, those things happen. And so what happens when those tough times come is it reveals whether you've done proper preparation for that day. Because you know it's coming, Frank.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
The cycles will happen, and as they do, they're going to affect the nonprofits more than they do educational institutions and a lot more than they will even churches.
Oh, that's so good. Great perspective, Jim. Anything else you want to say about the economy?
You know, not about the economy. I do want to talk about, a couple of things that I mentioned and by the way, we should really link to that blog post.
Oh, yeah, we will.
In the show notes, because there are some things in there that you and I just won't have time to cover. But, I wrote something in that blog post that hit me when I was thinking through this topic, and I wrote it this way. I said, the giving temperature of a congregation almost always matches the emotional and spiritual temperature of its pastor.
Wow.
And that may be a bit of a revelation to some. That might be a bit of a head scratcher, and some might even want to take issue with that. But it matches what I've seen. Yeah. It matches what I've seen over and over and over again. I wrote these words. This may be the single most consistent truth I've seen in 30-plus years of consulting. When the senior pastor leads from passion and conviction, the church's culture reflects it. Vision is clear, confidence is high, and people respond. They invest their resources in what they believe God is doing through the church. Yeah. But when the pastor is weary, uncertain, or discouraged, the congregation feels it. Vision blurs, enthusiasm wanes, giving slows. That's why pastoral health is a generosity issue. And
Whoa,
I don't think anybody thinks of it in those terms, Frank.
So good.
Nobody thinks of it in those terms. It is a part of the generosity culture of your church. And it's a bigger risk by far than anything in the macro economy out there that could come and harm you. And that's why for me, what we hear so much about what seems to be an epidemic of pastor burnout and pastor frustration and those things is a real issue for churches to solve locally, for your board to be on it. The first issue, if your board is doing its job, whether it's elders or however you're run, the first item on your agenda when you meet with the pastor is not the review of the financials. It's, Pastor, how's your soul? Pastor, how's your soul? Yeah. How's your family? What's God doing in your life recently that you're excited about? Is there a dry spot in your faith right now? What frustrates you about your walk with God right now, if anything? What makes it hard for you to walk the Christian walk and be a pastor in this church? Wow. What makes it easy for you to do that, right? How are your kids doing? If I weren't a board, I would want, at least once a year, I'd want to have a private interview with the kids and just like, hey, tell me about your relationship with your dad.
Wow.
Tell me about your relationship with your parents.
Whew, that's
tell
so
me what
good.
that looks like in your house, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're a board and and a board's well, you know, I'm all about mitigating risk. Well,
that's your biggest risk.
The single biggest risk is not in your financial statements.
Totally.
It's in the person who is leading your church.
Wow.
And if you're not taking good care of that person, you're actually avoiding the very thing that could have the biggest impact, not just on your giving, but the overall health of your church.
That's so good.
And if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
I think it's your job.
That's
right?
so good.
So,
Jim, I love that a lot of the organizations out there that create Christian curriculum for ministries, whether it be Financial Peace or Seed Time or whatever, Generosity University or whatever it is, these tools that are out there that help with budgeting and finances and whatnot. You know, many of them, I won't say all of them, I'll say many of them, if not most of them, will give resources to senior pastors to make sure that they're in that area of their life, their house is in order. Yeah. And if they need to work on budgeting or planning or getting out of debt or whatever, so many of them, Run Blue, so many of them are willing to give free resources to help pastors thrive in this area, because it can be hard to not deflect to the economy or something else and speak around generosity when you're struggling personally or navigating some stuff financially. And so as we point other ways sometimes, we're asking people to kind of look internally, there's the volatility of what's going on in the pastor's heart and life and things like that, including their finances. So I love that so many of these organizations are generous and are willing to help in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Makes it easier for pastors to find the resources they need to help them out of a jam if that's where they find themselves. And we actually did a full episode on that a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. And so you could check back and say, you know, how do I lead if I'm not financially prospering and I've got a mess in my own house? How do I lead from that?
That's so
bigger
good.
issue, and we want to make sure they're equipped for that. But your point that the resources, in fact, I just heard recently, not that he's the only one, but he's one of them. Dave Ramsey said overtly, hey, if you're a pastor and you feel like you need help, we have a special department, and we will give you everything you need, and we'll walk you through it.
Love it.
Those Ron Blue and others, they'll do that for you.
Yeah.
So if you need those things, go find them.
That's fantastic. This has been a very good episode, Jim. Thank you so much for walking us through very powerful insights. I think you've stirred it up a little bit. I hope that so. Some people take this, and I hope some of you just agree, because Jim is wise and probably just a smart thing to do. But for those of you that want to go chew on this, that is fruitful. That's good. Go process this. Think about it. Figure out where your thoughts and ideas lie. We hope this has been a really helpful episode of the Next Sunday podcast. We'll see you again real soon.
See you next time.